Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report, and coming up here on today's show, I have 10 players that I want y'all to watch at training camp. A few days ago, I released a video about the top 10 players that you should watch on July 18th training camp, which is rookies, UDFAs, and then the quarterbacks. They're going to be there 2 days earlier, but the veterans are going to be reporting on the 20th, which is what this video is going to be about. Now, if you haven't already seen that video, please go check it out. This is the thumbnail on the YouTube channel that you can click on, watch it. Let me know what you guys are thinking if you want to see more of those rookies, UDFAs, quarterbacks that I have my eye on. Now, if you want to subscribe to the Raiders Report, you can scan this QR code right here. It's going to drop you right on the channel. That way it's easier to find that past video, and if you bleed silver and black, I promise you, you're going to love it around here at the Raiders Report. So what we're going to do here is now I'm going to go from 10 and I'm going to work my way down to 1. And yes, these are ranked. These are players that I'm going to keep a very close eye on. At the end of the day, man, I just can't wait for some real Raiders football. Let's go to number 10 on my list. It's Double D, Divine Deablo. His versatility is something that I loved when he was first coming out of Virginia Tech, and I'm hoping that you see a little bit more of that versatility in Patrick Graham's defense, because you didn't really get to see it all too much last year in Gus Bradley's D. Now, when you ultimately think about how the season started and finished for Divine, he started off a little bumpy, but did get better and better as the season went. There's going to be a lot of linebacking competition, no doubt about that, whether it's between Divine Deablo, Jayon Brown. You're going to see some other players in the mix, Denzel Perriman. I personally believe that Perriman, Diablo, and Jayon Brown are going to be your top 3 linebackers. Now, sure, the outside LBs, they're going to switch up from here and there, but there is a lot of talent at the position. It's just there are still a lot of question marks. So, Divine Deablo, he's number 10. Number 9 is going to rock your world. It's Rocky Sin, cornerback of the Las Vegas Raiders. They traded for him this offseason in the unique Ngakoue move. If the season were to start right now, he would be the Raiders' cornerback 1. And personally, I think even with a healthy Trayvon Mullen, he's the Raiders' cornerback 1. Last season, Yasin allowed only 217 receiving yards on 45 targets. That's actually a pretty impressive number. On top of how Rock's going to fit with this defense, I'm also curious if Trayvon's going to be out there on the field. I don't anticipate it. I want to see where they put Nate Hobbs. Where do they put the new guy, Anthony Averett? Is Amik Robertson going to be able to make this team? What about Darius Phillips? Is he playing inside, outside? Special teams? Those are the top 6 corners that I'm going to be watching very, very closely. So right there, we start this video off with a few names, but how about this? I want to know the number 1 player that you are the most interested in hearing about, watching, reading about, looking it up on social media. I don't care where you are. Which player are you most excited to watch at Raiders training camp? Number 8 on my list here, offensive guard John Simpson. And Simpson was a player that 2 months ago, I actually made a show and I said, no chance Simpson is going to start for the Silver and Black. Well, I might be eating my words on this one, because he's been getting starting reps at the left guard spot at OTAs, and he was getting starts at minicamp. Am I a believer that he was getting those starts because Denzel Goods got an injury? They've been trying out Dylan Parham on the right side or at center, and they've also been using him at left guard. But I'm a believer that Simpson to me is more of a backup than a starter. But the left guard position is going to be one to watch, no doubt about that. And even though he's been regarded as the strongest offensive lineman on this team, I do think that Carmen Brasillo and this overall regime relies more on technique and relies more working on togetherness instead of just having one player trying to move mountains by himself. When you look at the offensive line depth chart, I do still have Denzel Good slotted as the starting left guard, but let's get one thing clear. This is going to change. This can change, and they're going to put the 5 best players out there. Perhaps John Simpson could be one of them. All I know is this: the Raiders' offensive line needs to be better, whether that's blocking for Derek Carr or opening up running lanes for Josh Jacobs. Number 7 on my list here of training camp players to watch for the Raiders, wide receiver Keelan Cole. I'm a Keelan Cole fan. I knew from the moment that they signed him that there was a reason why they went out and got him. And then a day later, I made a video that the Raiders put Bryan Edwards on blast, and 2 hours, 3 hours later, they traded him away to the Atlanta Falcons. The wide receiver 3 battle, no doubt, is one to watch. And After following the Raiders as closely as I have over the past few seasons, I am a believer that receivers that are better route runners or smart route runners is more effective with Derek Carr than somebody who's just a freak athlete. Bryan Edwards was a freak athlete, bad route runner. Keelan Cole, smart route runner. I think that's going to fit well with what Josh McDaniels is going to do, which is why he's my favorite to win the wide receiver 3 job behind Davante Adams, behind Hunter Renfrow. Yes, he's going to be battling it out with Demarcus Robinson. Matt Collins does give you quite a bit of special teams value, but when it all comes down to it, they're the 53-man roster for the Raiders. I just have them keeping 5 guys, and I'm afraid if you don't show up here early on, you might be on your way out quicker than what you actually think. Now, the Raiders Report, we're pumping out videos every single day on YouTube, but I also make a lot of videos over on Locals as well. And the way that I would explain Locals is this. If you honestly are like a true fan, somebody who you just brag about knowing more Raiders content or know more about the Raiders than your buddies, I would say Locals for you. If you're honestly not a diehard, Locals might not be for you. And the reason why I say that is because it's $10 a month, it's $100 a year, but you get 2 extra exclusive videos. I go live, and I've been talking a lot about quarterback rankings over the past few days on NFL Daily, at Chat Sports, or even here. And if you want to see where I have Derek Carr ranked, that video is now available for y'all over on Locals. If you want to check out this video because you know that I'm a big fantasy football fan, history suggests that Josh Jacobs is not going to lead the Raiders in rushing yards. Find out why. So if you could, scan this QR code right here and join me and join my Raiders community. We're getting close to 2,000 members at RaidersReport.locals.com. It is free to join the community, and you can still interact for free on polls, questions, get your mailbag questions in. I go live. Those are free to watch. But for the exclusive content, that's where you have to pay a little bit extra money. Please join. It helps me out a lot. Let's go to number 6 on my list here. Andre James, center for the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, we got to be real, okay? James was, according to PFF, the 35th best center in the NFL the first 5 games of the season. Some of you are like, well, how the hell is that possible, 32 teams? That's how bad he was. I will give him credit. He got better and better as the season went on, but the center battle is still one that I'm going to be looking very closely at. People who I've talked to say James has the upper hand, and he has the upper hand because he's been on the team. But this new regime does like Dylan Parham, who they watched at the Senior Bowl. He played center there. Parham also played left guard, right tackle at Memphis. He's a very versatile player, and PFF just released their rankings for centers. He came in at number 19. So, good player, but if he doesn't show up, he can find himself on the bench. I do see him, though, ultimately being the starting center for the Raiders. So here's my question. I know we talk a lot about right tackle. You can talk a lot about skill positions, but the center touches the football quite a bit last time I checked. So give me your confidence level in Andre James. I want you to scale it from 0 to 10. 0 being you're not confident whatsoever. 10, he's the best center in the NFL. For me, I'm going to give him a solid 5. Speaking of 5, let's go to Clelin Ferrell here on my list. The Raiders have been shopping Cle for, it seems almost like a year, 2 years. I know they continue to shop him now. They're listening to offers. On top of that, they declined his 5th-year option. For those of you that do not know what 5th-year option means, you're about to see some other players here in regards to that. So the 5th-year option is when you're drafted in the first round, after your 3rd year, an NFL team can exercise your 5th year, and then therefore it's a guaranteed contract. You get to stick around for 1 more year. The Raiders said no to Clelin Ferrell's 5th-year option, which means technically, not even technically, this is the final year on his contract right now. Also, Ferrell in an interview about a month and a half ago hinted at the idea that he was going to be switching to outside linebacker instead of playing defensive end. However, over the past week, he's been working out, I believe it was in Miami, and he was working out with a lot of defensive linemen, people from the Colts. I saw people from the Dolphins, people from all over the NFL. So he was working with defensive ends and defensive tackles. I also know that the best Cle I've ever seen was his final year at Clemson, and out of all the defenses that he's had to deal with here for the Raiders, the Patrick Graham system is probably the most similar to the Clemson defense than any of the others. So maybe this is the year. I don't necessarily know. What I do know is you got Crosby and Chandler Jones, and this is probably one of the most dynamic pass rushing duos in the NFL right now. But after that, It's a lot of question marks, and I'm going to tell you all right now, my SAT scores for grammar, not great, so I don't need question marks. I need definite answers. And Clelin Ferrell, Deshaun Bauer, Kuntz, Gary Green, Zach Van Valkenburg, I mean, he sounds like he should be keeping hawks in a closet or just, I don't know, selling something at a fair. All I know, though, is if Clee wants to make this team, he does need to show up, and he does need to perform pretty well. Another player who got his fifth-year decline, Johnathan Abram, safety, comes in number 4 on my list. And if you want energy, if you want excitement, if you want somebody who doesn't know how to say salmon, then Johnathan Abram's your guy. If you're looking for somebody who doesn't know how to cover, that's also your guy. And this is the issue with Abram. When you bring in a new regime, certain players get put on blast. The moment the Raiders signed Duron Harmon, I was like, man, that's not good news for Abram. Now, sure, he had 116 tackles last season. He had an interception. He also can provide some spark on special teams. But if he doesn't improve in coverage, it's going to be bad. And I think early on in training camp, you're going to see reports very quickly. And if I'm the Raiders, I am going to test whether or not Abram can hang in Patrick Graham's system. Because realistically, the Raiders' defense last season was better when Abram wasn't on the field. I got 3 more names that I got to get into, but remember, this is the off season. We're getting ready to get into training camp, preseason, the regular season, and I don't want you guys to miss anything. The way that you never miss anything, subscribe to the Raiders Report, and make sure you follow me on social media. If you do those things, I promise you, you will not miss a thing. So seriously, hit me up, IG, Twitter, Mitchell Renz 365. At number 3 on my list here of training camp players to watch, Josh Jacobs. He skipped OTAs and minicamp after Las Vegas declined his 5th-year option. I know Jacobs is the best running back in this room, but the running back room is no doubt going to be one to watch, and you have to realize that. The Raiders drafted Zamir White, Zeus, who I do have high hopes for going forward, and I believe is going to be the replacement for Jacobs in the long haul. But the concentration right now is in 2022, and if you were to bet me which back is going to get the most touches, it's going to be Josh. And if you want this offense to click the way that we are all hoping it clicks, you need a healthy and motivated Josh Jacobs, who has looked really, really good at times. Yes, he battled some injuries last season, but Josh, at the back half of the season, those final 4 games, if he's able to play like that again in December, in January, hopefully in the playoffs, that's when teams like the Raiders can make a playoff run. Let's go to number 2 on the list. And this is really where it got difficult because I didn't know who was going to be 1 or 2. I'm going to watch Devante Adams. Everyone's going to watch Devante Adams. And hell, I can make an argument that he's the number 1 person to watch. He's probably going to get the most coverage, not named Derek Carr. With the fact that they traded for him, I mean, DC finally gets a true wide receiver 1, and you can make the argument he's the best receiver in the NFL. On top of that, Carr gets his best friend, right? And, I do think chemistry matters a lot, no doubt about that. And for Devante, you heard early reports at minicamp and OTAs that the Carr and Adams connection was there. You're going to get to see it a little bit more. And you're going to get to see a little bit more of what Devante Adams, even when he doesn't catch the football, does to the offense, because as a defensive coordinator, as a defensive back, as a safety, you have to respect Adams. Maybe that's a double team. If you double team Adams, that's one-on-ones for Darren Waller, one-on-ones for Hunter Renfrow, one-on-ones for a lot of other players. Sounds like a pretty damn good offense to me. Now, guys, we've been cruising along here this offseason, and I appreciate everyone who comes across and watches this video. And if you've noticed, these numbers have gone up. However, 40.9% of the people watching these videos right now are still unsubscribed. I need more subs. The reason why I say it is because this is how I provide for my family. This is how I put a roof over my head. And the more subs helps me out, but it also helps you out because then I can continue to do what I love to do, and that's provide Raiders content. I'm going to guess the people who aren't subbed either didn't scan that QR code I showed you earlier, or they don't know how to make a YouTube account. So pay attention. Click sign in on YouTube. Click create the account. Then you're going to click for myself. Fill out the information, your first name, last name. It takes 5 seconds. Go to the Raiders Report. Hit the subscribe button, turn on those notifications, because I promise you the regular season around here is unlike anything you've ever experienced before. The number 1 player that I'm watching at training camp is Alex Leatherwood, because the Raiders want him to be the starting right tackle. And I believe if he can't win, or if he's not good enough to be the right tackle, offensive guard is a second option. The offensive line in general is going to be, I would say, the true Raider fans out there, the offensive line is going to be the thing that we're looking at. And yes, the flashiness of Devante Adams is out there, and that's going to take away concentration. Darren Waller, it's going to be there. But I really, truly believe, true Raider fans, they're going to be looking at the offensive line, and the domino starts at Leatherwood. If Leatherwood is good enough and the Carmen Bracillo, Josh McDaniels, this organization is confident enough that he can be that tackle, then that helps you kind of piece some other places together. If Leatherwood's not good enough, well, what does that mean then for Brandon Parker? Is he's the starter? Are the Raiders going to try to put Denzel Good over there? What about Dylan Parham? A lot of other question marks. But the biggest question mark I believe all of us have had the entire offseason is who is going to be the right tackle. And right now, that's why my eyes are on Alex Leatherwood. So let's put a bow on this. I'm getting ready to get out of here. Appreciate everyone who tuned in and watched the Raiders report today. Let's go through this one more time. My top 10 players to watch at, I guess, veteran training camp for the Raiders. If you could, take a screenshot. Don't be afraid to post it on social media, places like Twitter, places like Instagram. Tag me. I'm more than happy to share it on my IG story. If you disagree with my rankings, cool part about YouTube, cool part about the world we live in, you can let me know. Appreciate everyone tuning in, and these are the players that I think every Raider fan should watch at training camp.